The Smoky Valley Historical Association. I am Elston Flohr, a member of the faculty in the Department of English Theater and Speech at Benton College, a member of the board of the Historical Association, and director of its Oral History Project. Today, July 10th, 1986, I'm pleased to be visiting with Evelyn Bengtson Sangren and her nephew, Chester Peterson, both of whom are descendants of an early settler in the valley, Johannes Bengtson. First, Evelyn, I'd like to get some information about the earliest record of any ancestors that you have in Sweden.
The earliest record that we have is of Bengt Erickson, and he was born in 1797, and he was married to Evelyn Bengtson, who was born in 1798.
So they were 18th century people living in Sweden. And how many children did they have?
They had 9 children.
9 children. And only one of whom, I understand, came to America.
That's right.
And this was your grandfather.
My grandfather.
Johannes. So you said his name was Bengt Erickson. So that is where, of course, the Bengtson, the son of Bengt, derived from. Okay, now we have some, we will go next then to your grandfather. And this, I understand, is a picture of...
Yes, that's taken by Grendel.
Of Johannes
Bengtson, my grandfather.
And this was his
wife.
His wife. And what was her name again?
Margarita.
And she was the daughter of...
Well, her name was Margarita Svensdotter.
Svensdotter, that's how they went by their names in Sweden. And where in Sweden did Johannes come from?
He came from Hammaröd, but he moved to Karlstad in 1844.
And Karlstad was in the province of Värmland. And this also is where his wife Margarita Svensdotter was in. Bro, I believe the name is.
Bro
in Värmland, Sweden. Okay. And then we have some information, some stories that have been written about the coming of Johannes Bengtson to America. I think they were written by Alice and Vivian Bengtson.
That's right.
What relation would they have been to Johannes?
They would have been a nephew. Oh, wait, no.
Grandson.
The grandson was Vivian.
Right.
Vivian. And Alice is his wife?
Yes.
Would you read what the information that they had collected about the coming to America?
Vivian and Alice wrote this. This is just a note about the voyage from Sweden. No one knows why this family, together with others, had to come on a freighter instead of the other ship or boat. On this voyage across the Atlantic, this boat was about to sink, so they were giving a warning to the passengers to get their families all together, because they were quite sure that it was going to sink. They didn't have any control of this boat for days, but finally got it fixed, so the trip took a lot longer than it should have. Johannes and Margarita Bengtson and 6 children came from Värmland, Sweden. They came to Bolivar, Tennessee. There they stayed 3 years. The family had made $800 at this place in Tennessee by working in sawmills, and the women found other work. But they wanted to come where there were more Swedes. So Johannes and Margarita Bengtson came with their families to Lindsborg, Kansas. They took a homestead up by the bluffs. Later they bought 80 acres for $1 and a bull chain. Now what that bull chain was, I don't know.
We can't find out what the bull chain was. Okay, and then they also wrote something else about the home that they built.
Did Chester have that?
You have that? Was this an article that was written for a high school, Chester
Yes.
high school class?
Yes.
And it was written by whom?
I think this was by Mark Carlson.
By Mark Carlson.
I believe so.
Okay.
It's entitled A Smoky Bluff Homestead. This homestead originated about 1874. It was homesteaded by the family of Johannes and Margarita Bengtson and their 6 children, Emily, Marie, Elias, Louise, Sophie, and Carl. The Bengtson family came from their home in Karlstad of Värmland in Sweden around the early 70s. From Sweden, they went to Bolivar, Tennessee. By working in sawmills and the women finding work around there, they were able to accumulate $800 and move to a place with more Swedes, which is why the Johannes family homesteaded some land up by the Smoky Bluffs for 5 years so that land could be legally theirs. On September 1st, 1980, Johannes was given a homestead certificate for his 80 acres. About a year and a half later, Johannes bought 80 more acres for $1 and a bull chain. And then in parenthesis, a chain. This bull chain is used to connect the yoke of oxen to the plow.
Oh, that's what it is.
The farmers, like Farmer Johannes bought from, would often become discouraged with farming and decide to move. So to get rid of their land, they would sell it for a very small amount. He was given the homestead certificate for this land on April 20th, 1882. He felt that building his farm on the hills was good because it would be safe from floods. The buildings in the homestead were built by Johannes and his sons Elias and Carl. The stones were carried to a wagon and then brought to the construction site of both the buildings and the fence. Johannes was a stone stock racer and a farmer and had approximately 100 head of cattle. These were not purebred, however. He had an Angus bull. He also had chickens, dairy cattle, and horses. The farming land that was included in the first 80 was located southeast of the house. The portion of the farming land that he purchased later was located northwest and west of the house. This land was fairly rocky and not very fertile for good farming land. Johannes Bengtson died at the age of 68 on September 26, 1890. He was pitching hay from a wagon drawn by horses. The horses were startled, causing him to fall out of the wagon and break his neck. 2 years later, his wife moved from the homestead to Lindsborg. The Bengtsons became members of the Bethany Lutheran Church after moving to the Lindsborg community. Now there's more. There's some observations as a part of this. Maybe we can, should we wait with that?
If there is an appropriate time later on, what kind of very personal observation?
No, I'd say it's related to what I.
Well, I think we might as well hear it now then.
Okay. The homestead was located on the east side of a smaller hill in the bluffs. The hill has about a 20% slope and is located south of a large hill to the north.
Now, maybe I can interrupt. Can you exactly point out where that would be now, about where it would
It's
be?
In section, well, to give a general idea, it's about approximately 6 miles northwest of Lindsborg.
6 miles northwest of Lindsborg.
Just west of the Burma Road, about a half a mile.
But this side of the bluffs?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
On the slope of the bluffs, you might say.
Who lives there now?
Well, it's there's no farmstead there now at that location. It wasn't a very suitable location for a home.
I see.
I mean, it was the best they had, but
yes,
by today's standards,
yes,
it's not suitable.
Yeah, I read there where the farming land was not the very best in the area. Okay, you can go ahead then with what?
The homestead was probably located south of this larger hill so that the winds from the north would be blocked. On the top ridge of the larger hill is a stone fence, perhaps 1/4 mile long. The stone fence was at one time longer and was used as a divider between lands. The stone fence was approximately 3 feet high. The house was built close to the top of the hill. It had 2 lower rooms and an attic. The attic was reached by a ladder. Very large stones were used for the corners of the house and near the doors. Slightly smaller stones were used under the windows. All different sizes of stones made up the rest of the foundation. The only thing that was found in the house besides stones was to handle. I'll have to back up here. The only thing that was found in the house besides stones was a handle, some implement or vehicle. The door faced the east. Now this is observations made back some 20 years ago. At the time these high school fellow boys were researching this.
When the house was the house still standing then?
No, it was just some, you could see evidence of where it was, but and just some rocks.
I see.
This was a dugout about 200 feet, excuse me, there was a dugout about 200 feet to the southeast of the house. This was not used as living quarters, but as a storage for food and other supplies. The barn is located north of the house. All that is left of the barn is scattered stones and a hint of a foundation. The barn was the biggest building, was about 35 feet long and 15 feet wide. The foundation was not dug into the ground like the house and the dugout. The road came to the homestead from the south and ended up above the house. There were ditches on both sides of the road. The width of the road was 7 feet. There were 3 buildings with no information available on this. Therefore, we will draw a conclusion as to what they were. These conclusions will not be wild guesses, but based on research and interviews with older farmers. There were 2 dugouts and 1 building whose foundation was built up from the ground. Next to this building is a hole whose contents were probably used to build up the foundation. This was probably a granary since it was built up to keep moisture from getting into it. Another building was dug into the side of the hill. This building was not very large. It had a stone floor and a drainage channel in it. The floor sloped down, allowing manure to go into the pool in the center and then into a drainage channel and out to the east. The floor had about a 10-inch covering of dirt over it. We assumed that this was a straw shed since there were no rocks in the dirt covering to indicate that the stone walls were sealing. A straw shed was built by stacking straw on top of and on the sides of the building. The straw was about 3 feet thick on the roof and sides. The straw was held together by a type of netting fastened to posts. This type of a shed was very warm in the winter. This was probably used as a milk barn. The other building was long and not very wide. It was dug into the side of the hill. The door of this building was on the east side, just as the doors on all the other buildings. Most farmers had chickens on their farms. Since most chicken houses are long and not wide, we think that this was the chicken house. The well is located near the bottom of the hill. It is not as wide at the top as it is at the bottom. It is made of stones, and there are iron spikes driven into the walls of the well. The well is in the path of a gully. The only advantage we can see for placing the well there is that it is closer to the water. I think that's about the extent of it that's of interest here.
Well, that's pretty detailed information. I think it's the most detailed information about any farmstead, the makeup of any farmstead that I have heard. Now, what would this Mark Carlson have been any relation to Bengtson?
Just a neighbor.
Just a neighbor, and he was a student in the
high school student at that
did
time.
his research for Chester Bruce in his history class. Now, I think Evelyn, we've got a picture here of the Johannes Bengtson family. So could you point them out? Can you see them?
Man here in the middle is my father, Carl Frederick, and his wife Anna Olsen Bengtson. And their oldest child was Esther. Then here we have Erland and Arthur. Arthur was next to Esther, and then Erland. And then David and Gilbert over here. And my picture's over here. And this is Bertha, and this is Eva. And I'm the only one left in the Bengtson family.
You're the only one.
Only one left.
Now, what relationship are you to Elias?
Elias was my uncle. Elias was my papa's brother.
Of course, yeah, Carl. I see. Okay. Now, so the 6 children that Johannes came from Sweden with to this country, there were 2 sons, right?
Yes. Carl, my father, and Elias.
And Elias. And then there were several daughters.
The oldest one was Emily, Christina Bengtson.
And she married
Yes,
who?
John Larson.
John Larson of Lindsborg.
That's right. And then there's Maya Kaisa. That was Aunt Mary. She married Pete Norberg. And Anna Louisa, she was a maiden lady. And then Elias, my father's sister or brother. And Sophia was my Aunt Sophie, who lived in Colorado. And Carl Frederick was the youngest.
And Sophia married
Edquist.
Andrew Edquist. Okay. Now, I think before then we go to your father's family. Anna Louisa would be your aunt.
My aunt.
Your aunt. And I think, Chester, you have a kind of a sketch of Anna Louisa that the family carries. I think it would be well to hear that.
Would you like to hear about a gracious spinster lady who lived with her little dog Betty at 121 Garfield in Lindsborg, Kansas, across from the Emil Francine residence at 752 North 2nd, the kindest neighbors in the block? Aunt Louise lived frugally off her knitting and beautiful crocheting, which she charged very little for, and gave it mostly to her relatives in exchange for a bit of chicken feed for her dozen hens and a few roosters, who chattered such and kept her with eggs. The chicken feed was furnished by her brothers Carl and Elias Bengtson, Eddie and Rester and Lawrence Norbert, her nephews, who also saw to it that she had 100 pounds of sugar and 50 pounds of flour and the little necessities which made her life happy, never complaining, always seeing the bright side. She came over from Karlstad, Sweden on a freighter with her parents, Johannes and Margarita Bengtson, and 5 other brothers and sisters at the age of 13. Her entire lower lip had been cut away because of cancer over in Sweden. Only her lower teeth were visible. Her father was killed as he was pitching hay, and the horses became startled, causing him to fall off and break his neck in September of 1890. 2 years later, Margarita and Louise moved to a small cottage at 121 Garfield, Lindsborg, Kansas, until Margarita passed away and Sister Sophia's husband passed away in Kiowa, Colorado, when Sophia moved in with her sister, Louisa. Louisa passed away in 1931, and Sophie Edquist continued to live there until she became ill and passed away at Chester Peterson's parents' home. Now the cottage has been moved up into the 900 block of North Main. There was no electricity in this small house when Aunt Sophie moved in with her sister, Louise. When a young man with a bandana covering his face tried to hold them up, Aunt Sophie picked up the kerosene lamp in one hand and a butcher knife in the other and tried to pull the bandana from the burglar. And he said, "Don't do that." I'm sure they had no money, and he did not get any. But after that, Aunt Sophie was desperately afraid to be home alone. So she spent a great deal of her time with her nephew, Lawrence Norbert, but did not dare as much to have a window open one crack or door open, as she really had an aftermath of being frightened. And when one thinks of the many rapes, burglaries, and murders that go on these days, we also see that it went on in the 1930s as well. When Aunt Louise lived alone, there was not a day in which went by that Mrs. Francine did not deliver over to her next neighbor a few pancakes, a piece of pie, a piece of cake, or any other goodies that came from her kitchen stove. Mr. Francine was an excellent carpenter and was assisting in remodeling our Bethany Church in 1904, adding the wings to our present Bethany Church building when they received the word of Dr. Carl Swenson's untimely death out in California. Immediately, the carpenters were so stunned they quit carpentering until after Dr. Swenson's funeral. I guess that's the extent of that.
Who wrote this?
This was written by Esther Norbert, who would be a first cousin of Evelyn here.
He related to, yes, the Norbert name was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Evelyn, you have several articles Do you have anything that was written about Johannes Bengtson?
No, I really don't have any, but it's already been mentioned.
Okay. This has already been mentioned.
Yes.
All right. Now we need to hear. You don't have any family picture of the Carl Bengtson, really?
This is Carl Bengtson.
Oh, but his children. No family picture was taken of the Carl.
No, I guess I.
Like you were. Well, let's hear first then about Carl's wife. Who was his wife?
Anna Olson.
Anna Olson, and we're going to hear more interesting things about her later on. And your father's occupation was that of a farmer. Right? And that was what direction from Lindsborg would he have farmed?
About 6 miles north. He lived on the east side of the road. Well, that'd be about 7 miles, no, 6, 7 miles, I guess. And then he bought an 80 south of that. And then in about 1914, we moved across the road up to the hills that Chester mentioned, the bluffs.
Would that be section 19?
I think so, yes, section 19.
Was it range 16 or?
16-3.
16-3, yes. Now, there are some interesting facts about, he was married twice.
Yes.
Now, would you tell us about that?
Well, he visited the Olson family, and I suppose Emma and Anna were there, and we had a good time. Well, in time, he decided he wanted to marry Anna. So he asked Grandpa.
Now, this was in Sweden, would it have been?
No, that was right here in the United States. So they asked Grandpa if he could marry Anna. No, Grandpa says you can't marry Anna, you have to marry Emma. She's the oldest, and that was a very faithful practice in Sweden. So they did that. So
the oldest daughter should be married first.
First.
Do you have information about the coming of the Olson family?
Yes. My grandpa was confronted by Dr. Olson. He wanted to
This is Dr. Olaf Olson.
Dr. Olaf Olson. And so he mentioned to Grandma that he was going to maybe go over to the United States with Dr. Olaf Olson. And, well, she thought that'd be all right. But no, she wouldn't marry him. And then my grandpa talked to Dr. Olaf Olson. He said, well, you insist on getting married. So he went to Grandma and said, well, you have to get married now. We're going to go to the United States. And she said yes. So that was their honeymoon.
Okay, now, do you have any information about their coming to this country? They wouldn't have come first to Lindsborg, would they?
No. Yes, I think they did. I think they came to New York and came to Chicago straight to Lindsborg.
Yeah. When I visited with you before, I had someone said that on the way over they drifted on a boat to the mouth of the Mississippi, and that's how
that was Grandpa Bengtson.
That was Grandpa Bengtson, and that's how they got up to Tennessee.
That's right.
And worked a while in.
Now Grandpa said his
Tennessee.
first playmates were Negroes, and I could never understand that because there weren't any Negroes around here.
They would have been in Tennessee, perhaps.
In Tennessee, where he met his Negroes.
Okay. Now, so your maternal grandfather came to this country with Dr. Olaf Olson.
He wanted some people that could work and construct, and he wanted to build a community.
And his first wife was Ulrika, right? Ulrika Anderson. And did he have any? Did your grandfather Olson have anything to do with the building of the First Bethany Church?
Yes, he was one of the main constructors of the. That was in section 7, and that's the picture I have up there over the.
Oh yes.
Over the fireplace.
And that was directly south of Coronado Heights, as
far as I can tell, maybe just
southeast of Coronado Heights. I guess would that be about north of where Terence Carlson lives?
South. Section south of where Terence is.
What was the Bullocks Huset? I've heard that.
I really don't know. Do you know, Tim?
Well, that was kind of a company house, which was located, as I understand, down near the Burma Road down there, north of Terence Carlson's, which is now Larry Johnson residence.
And that was where the Bullocks Huset.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Have you ever heard of a picture existing? I don't know whether there's one in.
I don't know.
Several books that have been published.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of your father's work as a stonecutter?
No. Now Lily Lander, who was reared by my grandpa and grandma Olson, said that she had a memory of my father, grandpa, coming home, and his hands were scarred and bleeding.
From cutting stones?
From cutting stones, and that's about the only thing I know.
Did he ever work on the railroad?
Yes, he worked in Salina on the Union Pacific. And there's an interesting story. He made that voyage once a week, came home, and walked about 19 miles, and they carried groceries and so forth. And one night he walked into an Indian camp.
Oh, really?
And of course he was startled, but he backed out of there quietly and got away.
And he was not harmed by the Indians. Okay, now the children of your father's family. Did you have any brothers?
You mean Grandpa Olson's family?
Well, yeah, well, we've already talked about. Just here the Grandpa Olson family.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my Aunt Emma and my mother.
Is this the Olson family?
Yes, that's the Olson. This is my mother, and this is Aunt Emma, the oldest sister, and this is Tilda. These two worked at the college before Mother married, and Tilda helped her father in the harvest field, and she became very hot and warm. So she pumped up some cold water, took a bath, and she caught what they call quick consumption and died at the age of 19.
Went that fast?
It went very fast. And this is Uncle David. He was a bachelor. And this is Uncle Robert, who married Minnie Larson in 1929.
Okay. Now, you have written something about your mother. Is that right?
Yes, it's rather lengthy. There are so many things I really would like to know about grandfather and grandmother Olson, but I presume I may not have been too different from other children at the age during which I was permitted to live in their presence. I accepted things as they existed and dropped the matter there. Grandfather Olson, according to our incomplete family tree record, was born June 18, 1838 in Evedy, over Ullersrud parish, and sailed from Damshyttan, Färnebro, Sweden, to come to Lindsborg in 1869. He was 31 years of age when he came to Lindsborg. He was in his chivalrous years, and possibly was not aware of the great dangers that could possibly, and no doubt did, confront him and his young bride, Margarita Anderson. His bride was born April 14, 1842, and according to the best of my present recollection, she was 27 years of age when she joined her husband on this long, foreboding sea adventure. Hearsay has it that Grandpa Olson proposed to Grandma not too long before their sailing to their new home, and I think I have mentioned that, so it'll be a repetition. I seem to have gleaned a few very minor recollections of their happenstance in setting out on this adventure. Historians who have written at length about this leave the impressions that a group of some 200 left Sweden in May 1869 and arrived in Lindsborg during the latter part of June 1869. It is quite an established fact that Grandpa Olson was approached by Dr. Olaf Olson to join him in his company of some 200 people. And I think we mentioned that, how he happened to join with Grandpa Olson. So I don't think I need to read that. Maybe he could be called a carpenter. I think his experience has also guided him with more minute work, as in Swedish we would call it finsnickare. He also was very apt in the laying of stone. He, together with Brattström and Tinglöf, laid stone for buildings and fences, some of which are still in evidence in the community in sections 20 and 30. Grandpa Olson spent many hours also in helping other men in the construction of the Bethany Lutheran Church. And I mentioned that Mrs. Carlander had seen his hands scarred and bleeding. I'll repeat that. In the very early days, Grandpa worked on the railroad, and we mentioned that. And then he walked into the Indian camp. It would be very interesting to me to learn how Grandpa gained possession of his territorial rights. As far as I know, he and his family always lived in Section 30, in the northwest corner of this section, northwest of Lindsborg, about 6 miles. I have a recollection of 3 houses built on their little estate. Possibly there could have been 4. Possibly the first was a dugout. The second home probably was a 1.5-story stone structure with a ladder admitting the children to the top story. I recall Mother telling the story of their climbing the rungs on their ladder. I also recall Mother telling the story during a severe electrical storm. The lightning struck their home, and Emma's mother's oldest sister had a beautiful hat. Around the brim had been placed a wire on which artificial birds had been placed. The lightning circled the brim of the hat and ruined poor Aunt Emma's hat. No doubt a great catastrophe in those days. The next house was a 1.5-story frame house with 4 rooms and a pantry downstairs, of 2 bedrooms and large open hallway upstairs. This was the first house I remember, and I remember spending many happy days in this house. The last house was built by Uncle David and Robert in about 1929, at the time of Uncle Robert's marriage to Minnie Larson. And this house is still standing, and in 1986. According to our records, Grandpa and Grandma had the 6 children, as we have already mentioned. Then we mentioned about my father marrying Emma.
This was his second.
No, Emma was his first bride.
Oh, your father.
And Emma's death came just within a very short time following the birth of Esther, about 8 or 9 days. And Sophie, Carl's sister, made her abode with Carl until October 1893 to care for the young baby and Carl. And in October 1893, Carl married Anna Olson, Emma's sister. And I mentioned that Matilda got quick consumption and died, so we'll have to repeat that. The 5th child was a son, David, who never married. He was born in 1879, and died in 1965 of cancer. And the 6th son was Robert, and he died in 1961 as a result of hardening of the arteries, resulting in a heart thrombosis. Robert married later in life to marry Minnie Larson. A very vivid mental picture I have of Grandpa Olson was his mode of transportation. He built a large barn of stone, which still stands in good condition. In this barn, he had several horses, but the horse to drive he had hitched to his top buggy was named Topsy. Somehow we children admired Topsy. I recall playing in the barn, sitting petting Topsy and feeding her little lumps of sugar, which I had snitched from Grandma's sugar bowl. We children looked upon Grandpa with holy awe. We entertained a deep respect for him. I really don't recall ever having any moments of intimate communication with him. And I can't recall ever being scolded by him, but I think it was his bearing that kept us at a safe distance from him. However, we felt a great relationship with Grandma. She made lovely and very tasty thin pancakes. Before she rolled them up, she spread applesauce over them, and were they ever yummy. She also baked white sugar cookies that seemed to just melt in your mouth. One peculiar habit that Grandma had was, prior to her scrubbing the kitchen floor, was to sit down by the kitchen table to enjoy a cup of coffee. Of course, the coffee pot was an established appliance, always on the stove with coffee in it. No doubt the coffee consistency oftentimes became slightly thickened. So when Grandma had enjoyed what was enjoyable, she threw the remains of the coffee grounds on the floor, later to be caught up in her scrub water. As I recall and look back upon both Grandma and Grandpa Olson, I might classify them as slightly eccentric, but a dearly lovable couple. To be able to withstand the trials and hardships of which I'm sure they must have had their share, they had to have determination and drive to carry on, and a very deep reliance upon their God and the sustainer of all good. I can't remember that either was loquacious, rather quiet, and went about performing their tasks in a rather quiet and matter-of-fact way. They were a God-fearing couple. They lived to impress upon their children the necessity to live lives as exemplified by Holy Scriptures and Martin Luther's Catechism.
Very good. Very interesting reminiscence about your grandfather and grandmother, right?
That's right.
You've also written something about your mother, right?
Yes, and that's rather extensive too. But
maybe before we get to that, we need to review again the children of Carl Frederick Bengtson, and he was married to the two Olsen sisters, right? But we don't have a picture of them, do we?
That's this picture here.
Oh, this is the Olsen picture.
No, that's the Bengtson. That's Carl and Helen.
We've already gone through that.
Yeah.
That's with the second wife.
This was the second wife, but the first. How many children by the first wife?
Just Esther.
Esther. Was she on this picture?
Yes, that's she right
That's
there.
my mother.
Oh, this is
Jed's mother.
This is his mother.
That's my mother.
Oh, your mother. So Esther was married to Peterson.
Alfred.
Well, your father's first name was
Alfred.
Alfred Peterson. So that's how that fits in. And she was the only child by his first. Well, then we don't need to review that then. But then you do have something about your mother, who was Anna.
Yes.
Anna Olson.
Do you want me to read all of
Yeah,
that?
I think so. These very personal things are very interesting to have on record.
As was mentioned earlier in our discussion, Carl married Anna Olson and Ulrika's second daughter in 1893. They were married by Dr. Carl Swenson. It is quite an interesting honeymoon trip to Chicago. To a young couple, this was quite a highlight in their young lives. Mother often talked about the fireworks display over the lake. This impressed her so much that she could never get excited over our minor 4th of July activities. Mother was a taciturn person. She was unassuming. She was a very hard-working woman and spent a very full day. But in her later years, I remember her resting after the noon hour for about half an hour. Eva, her youngest, was very reluctant about her naps, so Mother would give her the alarm clock, informing Eva that when the minute hand pointed to a certain number on the clock to waken her. So Mother used strategy. Mother could relax knowing Ebba would be resting alongside of her. To rear a family of 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, was quite a task that required her utmost concern. She was very apt in sewing, and I recall that many times I sat at her in the back of her sewing machine and pedaled for her because she had very close veins which gave her a great deal of trouble. I'm sure they disturbed her a great deal. She made a use of us children, whatever capacity she could, to alleviate as much strain upon her legs as possible. I recall her calling upon us to run to the well to fetch the milk, the cream, or to the basement for some of the canned goods.
The well, they lowered the milk by...
Yes, Dad dug a well for her, so I think it was about 30 feet, and she'd hang the things down there. Mother always raised several hundred chickens every year. She used an incubator earlier in the business, but later she used hens, and each hen would have about 20 eggs, and the mother hen would hatch chickens. They meant a great deal of work. This meant a great deal of work in back bending. Possibly she felt that her mother hen could mother the chickens better than anything else, and then alleviate a great deal of work for her. She herself built several small houses to accommodate 1 hen and her flock of some 20 chickens. These little houses were scattered across the barnyard, and she labored very diligently at these chores, but of course she had to call upon us children, especially the girls, to help her. From early married life, Mother and Dad operated quite a dairy farm, and to take care of the milk was Mother's concern. I recall Mother saying that as she had promised, whatever she could save, that Dad had promised her, whatever she could save from the milk and the eggs and the butter was hers, just use as she thought best. Mother took a major part in the milking, even when the children were small. I recall when Ebba was very small, that Mother would set her in a 3-gallon cream can and set it alongside of her when she did her milking. And as Mother moved around the barnyard, she would carry Ebba in the cream can in one hand and her milk bucket in the other. And such was also the routine when Mother took care of the chickens. Mother was a good gardener good guardian of her money. She realized from the milk, butter, and eggs, as far back as I can remember, we always had a cream separator. Mother churned a great deal of butter and delivered pounds of butter to the Bethany home, private customers, and stores. I wish I had a recollection of the price she got from the butter. Mother had a horse named Fly. Then, with the money she realized from the sale of the butter, chickens, and eggs, she bought a beautiful top buggy. This was her mode of transportation. On Saturdays, she would load up her butter and eggs and start for the town. And Bertha and I would be allowed to accompany her to take care and take turns in running to deliver the butter to the customers.
Well, she certainly sounds like a typical farm lady with all of those chores and things. Did you have more that you...
Well, I don't know if it's of particular interest. That's about her sister-in-law.
I see. Okay. Now, I think for the record, something about the, let's see, the names of the sons of the Arthur Benjamin, and what did, he was a
He was a
pastor.
pastor.
And he married a
Myrtle Wessel.
Myrtle Wessel. And Erland Johannes was another son.
And he married Esther Marie Hulk.
Esther Hulk.
She's still living.
And she was a sister, she is Mrs. Elmer Peterson
That's
was
right.
a sister of hers. And then there was David, as you have mentioned, and he had Olaf, he had 3 names, David, Olaf,
We all did.
or you all did, and he was married to Esther Anderson. They lived in Colorado.
Yes,
I think you
yes.
said.
And he passed away.
And Carl Oscar Gilbert.
Gilbert. He married Pearl Danielson.
He went by the name of Gilbert.
Yes.
Now, Gilbert was, when I was in college, did he live out on the east edge of town?
Yeah, he lived there at one time.
Yes, I knew that.
And he moved with the mill.
Because I roomed for a while with Grandma Danielson. I used to walk by that house. And then, as you said, Esther, your mother, by his first wife. And then you, Evelyn, and your husband was Ernest,
Yes, Ernest Sangren.
And, let's see, Bertha. She was married to
Don Espy.
And Ebba. And these names you've mentioned in what you have written. And Ebba was married to Lloyd
Schultz.
Lloyd Schultz. Okay. Do you, and of course they have descendants too. We need not go into that. Do you think of anything else that you would like to add to what you said about either the Bengtson or the Olson family? I'm going to ask Chester some more things.
I can't think of anything right now.
Now, do you have anything more, Chester? I'm particularly interested also in what you know about the Rose Hill community.
Well, before we go into the Rose Hill, I would like to share another school project here. It repeats quite a few of the things that's already been covered, but from a different angle.
And this was written by whom?
This was written by Lauren Bengtson.
Lauren Bengtson. Now, he would be what relationship to?
He would be this article is about Grandmother Olson, who we've just been talking about, and he would be writing this about his great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother.
And it's written for a grade school project in well, it doesn't say when, and it's just kind of an interview, apparently. And it doesn't say whom he was interviewing, but I suspect he was interviewing either David or Robert Olson, who would have been his great uncles, who would be sons of Grandma Olson. And I will read parts of it at least. Born on a farm. Well, that isn't right. Born on a farm 5 miles north and 1 mile west of Lindsborg. He wasn't born there. Parents chose this community because it was Swedish, and they came to this country in company with Dr. Olson. They traveled by an old primitive train to Junction City, and then came by wagon to Lindsborg. Our first house was a one-room stone house built by my father. It had an upstairs, and one had to use a ladder to get up there. My parents had chickens, cows, and oxen, no horses. Mother brought a spinning wheel with her. She spun yarn to knit stockings, sweaters, and so forth. We never had a loom. Clothing was quite elaborate. Dresses had a lot of materials in them, some up to 20 yards. Sleeves were mostly long, tight about the waist, and skirts were very full. Hoops and bustles were commonly worn. Machinery was very simple. Crops were cut with corn knives and a scythe. Ground was plowed with a simple plow drawn by oxen. Yes, there were Indians, but they were very friendly, and they would come right into our house and were very curious. They would look over everything, especially clothing. We had a regular pastor, not a circuit minister. Grandma's first teacher was a man by the name of Peterson, which, by the way, was my dad's uncle.
Oh.
Just a connection. This was an English school, and he mostly stayed at one place. The teacher for Swedish school would board her 2 weeks at each one. The first schoolhouse was made of stone. They had desks in the school, but some, like where Grandma first went, they had board benches to sit on. Some students were old and full grown. Yes, weddings were quite an occasion. All the neighbors would be invited except for the children. Crops raised were mostly corn, wheat, and rye. These were harvested with a scythe and a corn knife. Quilting bees were not common, but neighbors would get together to do up their work, and then the women would come to help with the cooking. We did not have cars or buggies in the early days. When we went to church, we walked, and we attended regularly. We walked to Lindsborg with our produce of butter, eggs, and brought groceries and carried them home. My father worked on the railroad close to Salina and would walk home and to work every day, 18 miles. He used to carry sacks of flour from Salina. All our clothes were homemade, and Father made our shoes of leather.
And when he speaks of father, that would be Johannes.
No, that would be Olaf, the Olaf Olsen.
Oh, this is about the
Olsen. This is the Olsen side. I think there's some discrepancy in here. There's some discrepancies in there, but it's basically
but this was written by Lauren
Bengtson.
And he was the son of Erland.
Right.
Erland Bengtson. Yeah. Okay, well that was interesting too. Anything else now that you say your father was, what was his name again?
Alfred Peterson. Yeah.
Was he a descendant of very early settlers too in the Peterson?
Not of the real early. My father's parents came here in about 1878, so they were not of the very earlies.
But your grandfather's name, what was your grandfather's name?
Nils. No, excuse me, Hans Peterson.
And he was a farmer in...
Yes.
Did he homestead?
No, he came too late to get a homestead.
Came too late to get a homestead.
He had to buy an 80 from a discouraged homesteader.
Oh, I see.
He had to give $800 over an 80. It's $10 an acre, so I don't know.
So the price had gone up.
The price had gone up. It's my understanding that when they came in about 1878, all the homestead land in this area was taken. To find a homestead, they would have had to go out into western Kansas, where there were no Swedes, so they chose to stay here and buy.
Even the railroad land had all been sold,
I suppose.
By that, was that 1879?
78, I think it was.
78. And do you live or farm any of the land that he was connected with?
I still own the land, yes.
Still own the land. Is that in the Rose Hill?
Not really. It's to the northwest of the Rose Hill area, about 3 miles. It's near, but not quite the same.
What do you remember or know about the Rose Hill community?
Well, the Rose Hill neighborhood or community is about 4 miles north of Lindsborg. It started out, it was a Pastor Peel which is quite a bit of record now, a book drawn it.
And he has written that book.
Pastor Peel wrote an autobiography, and it's been translated now, and it's available for sale. Right in the neighborhood, the Rose Hill neighborhood, my grandfather Peterson's brother, who was a Methodist preacher, had come here earlier.
Grandfather Peterson's brother.
Named Nels. He came here early enough, so he homesteaded. And when my grandfather came here, 78, then they stayed with the other family till it could find a place of their own. Now this brother, the earlier brother who came, Nels Peterson, Reverend Nels Peterson, he was a Methodist preacher, and he also then served in the state legislature about that time.
Where was he was a Methodist preacher, but did he have a congregation?
He was instrumental, and they tell me, in organizing the Fallen Church, which is non-denominational at that time. And I understand he was the organizer of the local Methodist church here in Lindsborg, Swedish Methodist.
I think maybe Roy Nelson is mentioned here.
Yeah.
I've talked to Roy Nelson about
It's mentioned in their history book.
that.
Then this Nels, who he left then the Rose Hill neighborhood in about, somewhere in the early 80s, and went on west to, I think, the Oakley area. It was getting too populous for him around here then. He moved on. He died out there later. This Nels Peterson was also on the original school board out there at Rose Hill. We have some those records. But another interesting thing, he was on the original school board at Rose Hill.
Who was?
Nels.
Nels.
His daughter was the first teacher of that school. She was 13 years old at the time, and we have documented that. That's true. We thought at first it was just family story, but I've checked it out, and it's true.
13 years old.
13 years old.
Would she have had students that probably would have been almost as old as she?
Very likely.
Very likely. So there was a school and a church at Rose Hill.
Yeah.
And were there any kind of stores or no?
Never. No, the extent of it was the church and the cemetery and the school. That is the extent of it.
And none of these buildings, of course, survived. The cemetery, of course.
The cemetery is there, and that's all.
Okay. Can you think of anything else you'd like to add? Either about the Johannes Bengtsons, the Carl Bengtsons, or the Olsons?
I might mention that Mother had an interest in art. She studied with Mrs. Luther Swenson, and she stayed at her home and did work for her, and then she got the art lessons for working.
Oh, she worked for Luther Olson?
Luther Swenson.
Luther Swenson.
And we have some of her paintings today. Bertha had some, so Don has them. And I gave Erland a picture of cats that Mother painted. She did very nice work.
And who painted that? Is that a painting up there? No, that's a...
That's a church, you mean?
Yeah, the church, the picture of the church.
I don't know.
Maybe I can get
I don't know.
Is it a painting or?
It's sort of
It's plaster, isn't it?
Plaster. I see. It's plaster. Okay. Anything else?
I think we covered pretty well.
Oh, good. I think I'd like to just. I know that eventually we'll have to talk maybe to some of the Elias Bengtson, but the children of Elias Bengtson, can you name them? The Bengtson family, Elias Bengtson family.
Yes, there's Ellen, Mrs. Rosander, of course, they're all dead now, and Anna, Mrs. Schustrom, and Manny.
Which Schustrom would that be?
Ralph Schustrom's mother.
Ralph Schustrom's mother.
And the one that lived out in the west was Manny. I believe those were about all, weren't they?
Vivian.
Vivian and Herman Bengtson.
Now, who was
Eddie.
the father of Milton Bengtson?
That was Eddie Bengtson.
Eddie.
So they had Lillian and Milton and Gilbert. Charles and Ines were twins. So that's the extent of that.
So that is the Elias Bengtson.
Yes.
Well, we thank you very, very much for. It's been very interesting hearing about all of this information about the Bengtsons and the Olson, the Olaf Olson family and descendants.
One interesting thing that maybe Evelyn, you can fill us in on. You remember the story about when Uncle David was driving that old car, and didn't he have an accident? Driving a brush car?
Yes. I don't know, maybe it was a Ford. Luther Nelson's had a dog named Cricket. He ran out in the road, and Uncle David came and they upset him.
The dog upset the car.
The dog upset the car? That seems hard to believe. How could that have happened?
Maybe he just dodged the dog or lost
He might have
control.
lost control.
We don't know.
But the car turned over.
Turned over.
On its side or on
Yeah,
its
it turned
top?
over on this side of the ditch.
It just lifted us back up, I guess, and went on.
Yeah, I appreciate very much the very personal reminiscence that you have given of your parents and grandparents. So thank you again very much.